9,000 points. The Nifty Junior has been up over 3% this week and it is at an all-time high. Clearly a stock picker's market, and joining in to help you with some stock ideas is an independent market expert, Niraj Dalal. Well, Niraj, good afternoon to you. Thank you very much for joining us. We've already seen Dish TV do very well in the past few weeks. Is that a stock you would recommend?
Hi, good afternoon, Lata. Yeah, Lata, every time I come on your channel, I have said this repeatedly that, once you identify a good stock and if the fundamentals are falling into place, the earnings are in place, there's no reason not to buy the stock. So whether you bought it at 70, whether you bought it at 100, or whether you buy it at 110, I think Dish TV is a stock which, for me, over the next 3-4 years, should be substantially higher than where it is trading today. So no reason not to own it, no reason not to buy it.
Okay, no, because you've recommended it before, I started with that one, just to ask you, whether people should be still sticking to the stock. One of the adages in the market is that people don't like to see their own profits; they go and book it. But in this case, you would want them to stay on for the long haul.
It's firstly, I think it's very difficult to identify a stock which has the makings of a multi-bagger. Once you've identified that and the thesis falls into place, okay. I think the way to make serious money is to ride through that.
Okay, so 3 to 5 years
and I genuinely believe that Dish TV offers the potential.
Okay. Niraj, hi. Yes, this is a stock that you have backed for a while and has given really good returns. The other stock that you've picked out for us is Cipla. Now, over there, there's a bit of, there's so much management changes that we've seen in the past couple of weeks and months. I mean, the successor in waiting, Kamil Hamid, has stepped down. Now, Samina Wazirali has taken over. So the stock has not moved much, perhaps because of these worries. Would these management changes worry you at all, or do you think that the long-term prospects are intact?
So, changes like this can hold the stock back for a while. I think the stock will move up once the earnings start coming in. I am reasonably certain that over the next 3-4 quarters, the earnings will stabilize at a much higher level than what they are today. Again, the reason for Cipla, and we've discussed this before, is that it's a company that the capex cycle is done. The earnings should now come through. Last quarter was not so good, so clearly there has been some stalling of the stock in between the 600 and 700 levels. But to my mind, I think it's a great stock to own. Again, with 2-3 years time frame, great earnings visibility. And yes, a little bit of uncertainty on the management, but not something that will change things dramatically.
Okay. Well, I wasn't really dying to start with Dish TV. I wanted to actually start with your 2 textile stocks, simply because that's been the flavor of the month, as it were, and these are reaching out to stratospheric levels. Let me start with Himmat Singh Ka's side. When, if I'm pronouncing it properly, when it reached 100, it looked like it had reached kind of its, say, technical level, is what some people told us, because it had turned away from that level in previous times. But this has just gone on and on now, 120. Is this going to be one of those multi-baggers, and why?
So, Lata, every time you buy a stock, the expectation or the hope is that it'll deliver good returns. So the thesis for Himmat Singh Ka is very simple. Okay, it's about 9.5 crore shares with a book value of about $80 and about 1,100-1,200 crores of sales and making a profit of 100 crores. Now, a lot of its business is in the US. So you're looking at a stock in the textile sector which is available at 11-12 times historical earnings, with great sales growth potential and margin improvement possibilities. So, if and given the way the whole sector in terms of textiles, whether it is a Kitex or Vardhman or some of the other stocks have performed, there is no reason for this not to be going higher. So, but it's still early, as you said, a lot of people were skeptical, have been skeptical. 100 was an important level. I mean, frankly, I don't look at all those levels, but to me, I'm looking at, if the stock is able to generate, 20, 25 rupees earnings over the next, 2-3 years, then it's not going to trade at, 100, right? I mean, you do the maths. So, to my mind, I think it's an easy bet.
Okay. What about Kitex? Since you referred to it yourself, Kitex in that proverbial March 4th date when the Nifty touched 9,000 was 500 rupees.
Yes.
Now it's 1,000 and Nifty is still struggling to get back over there. Anything recently that has happened in the stock that we should take note of?
Nothing recently. I think the numbers have come as per expectations. Actually, above expectations. This is the fun about picking the stock early, Lata. I mean, you get lucky sometimes. I was lucky with Kitex. I'll be honest. At 250, 300 when I bought it, I wasn't expecting it to go to 1,000 in such a short span of time. Again, the logic then was same. Good company, well managed, doing the right things. Earnings will come through. See, the one thing, Lata, which I'd like to reiterate is. In this market, if the earnings have come through, the stocks have reached significantly higher levels than when they started out. So I think if you are able to identify a stock which has good management, reasonably stable balance sheet, and earnings potential, the market has rewarded you. So again, Kitex is something that I hold now, but to buy at 1,000, I'm not so sure.
I had a follow-up on that, Niraj, because when Kitex, I remember, was at about 300-400 rupees, a lot of people expected it to replicate the success of Page Industries, its peer in that group, which it did successfully. But now that a lot of the story has played out, from here on, what kind of expectations do you have for Kitex, considering that it does, it's one of the major suppliers to the biggest brands in the country, so whether it's Mothercare, whether it's Jockey, even some of the global brands. So, do you think that Kitex still has the potential to grow at this pace?
Yeah, I would love if Kitex grows at the pace it has grown in the last year. But to be realistic, I think if Kitex has 25%, 30% earnings growth over the next 2-3 years, I will take that. I will be happy. See, there was a time when the base was lower. I don't think that's the case any longer. So. 25-30% earnings CAGR over the next 2 to 3 years, if they're able to manage that, sure, Kitex will be much higher than where it is today. And on the lower side, I don't think it's going to do anything lower than 15 to 18% of earnings growth. So even if that be the case, I will get my steady return. So I think Kitex now moves into that zone where if you own it, stick with it. It'll give you good returns over the next couple of years.
Okay, let me ask you then the Ulta stock, Tata Global. That's actually failed to perform. I remember it at 170, now, about a year back or thereabouts. Since it's gone wrong for some people who may have bought it at those levels, what's the courage that you have to buy it now? Are you recommending it as a buy?
Lata, so it's not gone wrong for some of the people, it's gone wrong for most of the people, including me. So, I am being very honest. I have been a strong believer in the brands business. I've been a strong believer in the Starbucks concept. Everything seems to be in place for this stock, except that the price does not go up here. So you don't have a stock which is available at one-time market cap to sale in the entire FMCG space. Okay. So this is available at one-time market cap to sales, but anybody who wants to argue the logic can say that it's been available at that market cap for the last 2 years. So what's going to change, right? I mean, we were there at the analyst meet after the results, and there was huge desperation amongst the investors. I think the management realizes that they need to focus on the ROCE, they need to focus on profitable growth. See, they've gone ahead and invested small amounts in various countries. They've realized that that's not worked. They've had to take write-offs. I think their base business is doing very well. The Starbucks business is doing very well. If they are able to increase their margins by about 200, 300 bips, by just focusing on the core business and improving their existing business, I think the stock will get some traction. And then I think again, Lata, it's going to take time. If you remember about 3-4 years back, Lever spent about 3 years in the range between 200 to 300. I am very hopeful that Tata Global will do a Lever, in the next 6-12 months sometime.
Okay, well, you have been very patient with Dish TV as well, and finally in the last 1 year that has yielded some results, so hopefully this will as well. But I just wanted to get one final word from your end on Delta Corp. That's another stock that not too many people have faith in, perhaps because of the industry it's in, and also the stock has not done anything this year. It's down about 10% in such a booming market. You would still put your hopes on Delta Corp?
Oh yes, it's again, Delta Corp is another stock which the gestation period has been pretty long. The company is doing all the right things. This quarter results were more or less in line. Expectations were about 75 crores of gaming revenue. They did about 81 crores. So the numbers are coming for Delta, but the triggers in Delta are very different. Realistically speaking, it's the Daman Casino, it's the reduction of their debt, it's them selling off their non-core businesses, and they're doing all of this, right? I mean, the strategy has to fall in place. I think the biggest trigger is the Daman license. Once that comes in, then you are looking at significantly higher cash flows than what they have right now. And let me just remind you once again that the EBITDA margins in the gaming business are just fantastic. So if you are talking of sales doubling over the next 2 years, this stock will be in a very different zone, and that's the bet. But again, the caveat is that's been the bet for the last year. So it all depends on them getting the license.
Yep. And EBITDA margins,
hopefully at some point that comes through.
Yep. If EBITDA margins are so big, then obviously there will be a whole crowd of people, and the whole crowd of people have not gone there because permissions are hard to get. Yes. So that EBITDA margins therefore will remain elusive till it's proven. I take your point. You have to tell us whether you own any of these stocks and what your disclosures are.
Yes, I will own all of these stocks. I own all the stocks that we discussed right now.
All right. Thank you very much. Oh yes, that's an important disclosure, because here's someone who has put his money where his mouth is. Okay, thank you very much for joining us, Niraj Dalal. Pleasure speaking with you. Let's now get Pragya in. She's here with a roundup of what the brokerages are betting.